The former Democratic governor of Montana is a guy by the name of Brian Schweitzer. I don't know if I'm pronouncing that correctly, and I apologize if I'm not. But he went on the Sunday talk shows and got into a great argument with Bill Kristol and Cokie Roberts about foreign policy. And what you're going to hear is what I think is the perfect representation of what the American people think versus what the Republican and Democratic establishment think. Listen.
Well, the Europeans are right. We've had 12 years of war. For the last 11 years, you can't find anybody left in America can tell you, why are we still in Afghanistan? Al-Qaeda attacked us. They're not in Afghanistan. We're fighting somebody called the Taliban. They live in caves in the Stone Age. Why are we still there?
Because there is first of all, we went there and we promised we'd stay there. And we promised...
Who did we promise? We promised Karzai, who's a crook, and his brother's the biggest drug smuggler on the planet.
How's the withdrawal from Iraq and the failure to intervene in Syria working out? Do you think we're safer? Do you think Al-Qaeda is weaker as a result of that?
Bill,
do you think Al-Qaeda will be weaker if we get out of Afghanistan?
I lived in Saudi Arabia during the 80s when we were supporting Saddam Hussein, who was fighting Iran, the people that we know are the most dangerous actors in the neighborhood. When we went into Iraq, Al-Qaeda didn't function there. We destabilized Iraq. We threw Saddam Hussein out, who's a bad guy like a lot of other people in the Middle East, and now we have Al-Qaeda. It's our problem. We broke to China, and now we're going to have to go back in. What's your solution?
My solution is to be serious about being engaged in the Middle East, not to go back in militarily to Iraq, but not to pull out 100% of Iraq or Afghanistan and leave them to go back to the same cycle that led to 9/11.
Perpetual war in the Middle East.
No, perpetual engagement and being serious about our responsibilities as a world power. And yes, being willing to fight when we have to fight. Are you against that? Are you against that?
We went to the Middle East 60 years ago because we wanted to get a supply of oil in the Middle East and Saudi Arabia. We will now be exporting oil and gas from the United States during the next 6 years. They are competitors. Let the Europeans...
We also have a certain way, but we have a moral obligation as well. It's not just an economic obligation. We said to the women of Afghanistan, we are going to make your lives better. We're going to get you educated. We're going to get your children educated. The crisis of Syrian children right now is outrageous. There are children dying every day in these refugee camps, and we are just not making anything happen to make their lives better.
Yeah, good point. And there are also children dying in Myanmar, which is a dictatorship that we actively support. There are children dying in other dictatorial regimes that we actively support and give money and aid to. So spare me this. We have a moral obligation to go around the world and do X, Y, and Z. This is the exact kind of thinking that every single empire throughout the course of history has ever had, and they always told themselves pretty little lies. Like, we are the good guys by definition. No matter what we do is right, and we're just looking out to make sure that there's no more genocides and no more problems and no more this and no more that. Really, that's funny. Why don't you go ahead and do yourself a favor? Google United States support of authoritarian regimes. We have a funny way of keeping peace around the world and spreading democracy around the world by overthrowing democratically elected governments and putting in authoritarian dictators. Again, don't take my word for it. You can read the history of what the United States did in South America. You can read the history of what the United States did in Iran, for example, right? When we toppled Mohammad Mossadegh, a democratically elected president, and put in the Shah, who was a dictator, who just did what we wanted our corporations to do. I mean, do you realize that because Chiquita Banana, the corporation, wanted access to bananas somewhere in South America, we toppled a democratic government? That's where the term banana republic comes from. Classic imperialism. And all of these things are the pretty little lies that we tell ourselves. No, we're not, taking over your country for our own selfish needs. We're doing it because we're the good people and we're just trying to help you out. I mean, it's comical. It's pathetic. And by the way, I don't care what Bill fucking Kristol's opinion is on this or Cokie Roberts' fucking opinion is on this, because the American people are against going all around the world and doing this shit, and that's all that's supposed to matter in a representative democracy. Unless it's a constitutional issue, which it's not, then it's open to democratic opinion, and they say, we don't want to have anything to do with everybody's internal problems and this and that. The only time we should ever use the U.S. military is if there's a danger of an imminent attack against us, so we could use it for self-defense. And look at the cost of what he's talking about. $7 trillion wasted in Iraq by the year 2053 when you add on the interest and all that stuff. $7 trillion for what? For what? It's in a worse place now than it was beforehand. And how many people died? We killed 100,000 innocent civilians in Iraq. And we're patting ourselves on the back for that? We should be in front of a court, an international court right now. We broke the Nuremberg Tribunal, the Geneva Conventions. We disregarded the United Nations and went in there illegally. I mean, it's like, this guy, he's so off base. Cokie Roberts and Bill Kristol are so off base that it's laughable. And I love how he tries to, like, he's condescending at one point, like, screaming, like, well, you don't think we should do this? No, I don't think we should do that, you fucking moron. You do? I mean, I love when he asks, well, how's the withdrawal from Iraq going? Wonderful, thank you very much. Seriously, it's going great for the young American men and women who now aren't dying over there. Or would you rather them die over there because other people have problems? Would you rather that go on? And they say, oh, well, there was a lot of deaths in Iraq this year. Yeah, you know what the number was? There was 8,000 deaths. You know how many deaths there were in the United States from gun violence? 32,000 in the same year. But care about the 8,000 in Iraq, not the 32,000 at home, because, of course, Bill Kristol, he doesn't want to do any even moderate gun reform to make sure that 32,000 people don't die. So it's cool, everybody in the U.S. could die. We won't handle our own internal affairs, but we should send the military overseas to handle other people's business. 17% of the American people are in favor of staying in Afghanistan. 17%. It's less popular now than Vietnam and Iraq. But Bill Kristol's going to arrogantly argue that everybody should listen to him, Mr. Dictator Bill Kristol. And then Cokie Roberts, well, we promised that we'd stay there and help these people in this way and that way. No, we fucking didn't. You know what we promised? We promised that we'd go after Al-Qaeda. That's it. We promised that we would go after the people who were responsible for 9/11. Okay, and guess what? Osama bin Laden's dead. Mission accomplished. Bring everybody home.